ornament. So she bought it for me. On the evening of my 6th birthday, she had come into my room and sat down beside me on my bed. She had carefully taken the blue-green amulet from her neck and put it around mine. "It will protect you," she had whispered, as she lovingly ran her fingers through my hair and kissed my forehead. "Never take it off." I felt a lump rise in my throat and swallowed hard. Pull yourself together. There wasn't time now to melt from self-pity. If I didn't hurry, the train would leave without me. I carefully wrapped the picture frame in a towel and set it in my suitcase. When I looked up again, I started with a fright. For a moment, I thought someone had appeared out of thin air and was standing across from me. But a second later, I saw I was standing in front of the long mirror on my cabinet, looking at my own frightened face. Dear God! My heart was pounding. I'd become terribly fearful lately, probably because of that creepy guy I'd first noticed at Zara's funeral. He had stood somewhat off to the side and watched me the whole time. At first I thought nothing of it because lots of unfamiliar people had attended. But I had come across him again and again over the following weeks. The first time was a few days after the funeral. He stood as if petrified on the other side of the street and openly stared at me. Soon after, he got in the queue at the same register at the grocery store, but only bought a pack of gum. One evening after I had babysat Timmy, I even thought he had followed me home. As if to confirm it, he rode in the same bus I took daily to Beeman's. There he skulked around the car park for hours and looked through the windows of the store. I was tempted to call the police, but when I headed for the bus stop after closing, he was gone, and I hadn't seen him since. However, I still half expected him to be standing there every time I turned a corner, his hands in the pockets of his grey wool coat, his sparse hair combed back, and the same frozen expression on his face, as if he were a spy from the 30s. It made sense that I would find this guy creepy, but it was strange that my own reflection frightened me. I took a step closer. Was that really me? When had I last looked into a mirror? I barely recognized myself. I looked haggard, and my cheeks were sunken. When had I last eaten a proper meal? I couldn't remember. I'd completely lost my appetite in the last few weeks. I'd noticed from my loose-fitting clothes that I'd lost weight, but I didn't want to waste time thinking about food. So I'd simply tightened my belt and left it at that. I'd always been slender, but now I seemed downright fragile. My long, medium blonde hair, which reached halfway down my back, was uncombed and loosely knotted together. It used to have a golden sheen, but now looked dull, colourless, and unhealthy. I stepped up to the mirror to look more closely at my face. I was so pale my skin almost appeared transparent. Heavy shadows showed under my eyes. Zara had marvellous beaming green eyes. Mine were a few shades darker, green with a hint of blue. They'd lost their shine and now appeared empty and lackluster. My eyelashes, too, were not as dense and long as they used to be. My once full lips had almost taken on the colour of my skin. I could have passed for a corpse, and the black clothes that I'd taken to wearing enhanced that impression. I gladly looked away from the frightening apparition in the mirror and turned my attention back to packing. Then I took one last look around the small flat to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything. I was glad that the next tenant was willing to take the furniture, especially the heavy leather couch. Otherwise, I'd have had to deal with it myself. I locked the door one last time and dropped the key, as arranged with the new tenant, into the mailbox. Then I took my bags and walked away without looking back. My entire life, or rather, what was left of it, fit into 2 suitcases. The Prescott silver minivan waited in the street. "Here, Evelyn, here!" Timmy excitedly called at me as he waved. As I expected, they'd all come to say goodbye. My substitute family, I thought with a touch of sorrow. After all, these 3 people were the closest thing to a family that I had. And if I was really honest with myself, they had a piece of my heart. They were the only ones I liked being around. The only ones I